I'm Ron Funk, and this is HerpMatrix. This episode, I want to walk through what reptile keepers often misunderstand about legality and how reptile law actually works in practice. One of the biggest problems in the reptile hobby isn't bad intent, it's bad information or bad assumptions. People hear things repeated so often they start to feel true. For instance, have you heard a teacher or someone in the media tell you that you only use 10% of your brain? Well, you know what? Scientists have discovered that's just not true. Brain function is far more complex than that. Reptile law works the same way. There are certain ideas that get repeated so often by so many sources that they start to feel like fact. This channel exists to separate what people say from what the law actually says. There's a number of core confusions at play. The law is not the internet consensus. The law is not what is commonly done. The law is not what hasn't been enforced yet. Here's some common assumptions we face in the reptile hobby. If it's common, it's legal. How about this? If it's captive bred, it's allowed. No one enforces this. I've never heard of anyone getting in trouble for that. None of these are actually reliable indicators of legality. I want to spend a few minutes on how reptile law actually works. There's a number of levels of laws and regulations that are applicable in the reptile hobby. First of all, there are federal laws that apply. These govern mostly the importing and exporting of various species, and also some restrictions on transporting species over state lines. Then within each state, states have their own laws and regulations that are passed by their legislatures and which govern the hobby within the states. And then even within those states, you have county laws, you have municipal laws, you even have HOA regulations, which may affect the number and the size of the species that you can keep. A statute might say certain species are regulated or restricted. There are then potentially regulations that are put in place, which are rules written by agencies to carry out these laws. And then there's sometimes when the legislatures will give the agencies discretion on how to interpret and enforce the law. Very often, legality is conditional. It's conditioned on what kind of species we're talking about. It's conditioned on what activity are we looking at. For instance, keeping versus breeding versus transporting. There are laws and regulations that are specific to location. And there are laws and regulations that govern what kinds of permits may be required to keep or breed or conduct some other activity regarding a reptile or amphibian. Enforcement often lags, which often creates false confidence. So what this channel is going to do is we want to explain what the law says. In other words, we'll tell you what the definition of is. We want to explain how it's applied. Doesn't matter how you or I read or understand it. It's how those with the enforcement authority apply it in practice. We're going to try to explain where the gray areas really are. We're going to avoid fear-mongering. We're not going to give legal advice. And we also definitely don't want to get into any hobby drama. If you care about reptiles, clarity matters. If you want to be informed and up to date on what the laws are that really govern the species that you keep and breed, then HerpMatrix is the place for you. In our next episode, we're going to address some of the myths that get people into trouble. Thanks for watching.